this as interactive as possible. So use the chat box to interact with us, and use the Q&A box if you have any questions at any point. Pop them in the Q&A box, and I'll keep a track of those, and we can ask Jason towards the end of the session. I think that's a good plan. What do you think? Okay, I think that's enough from my side and taking a lot of your time. I'll mute myself, Jason, and over to you. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy.
Thank you, Sarish, and thank you, everybody, for joining this back to school webinar. I know we have some existing users of Inspire Science, and I know we have a lot of brand new users of Inspire Science as well. So we want to start from the beginning and give you a really strong baseline of how Inspire Science is organized and what resources and what activities are found throughout the lesson. Where are they found? Online. Our online experience has changed just a little bit. So even if you've been using Inspire Science for a while, it'll look a little bit different. If you're brand new, it'll look brand new to you. So we're going to do a general overview, get as far as we can in about an hour, maybe even have a little interactivity along the way. I've got a little question I'm going to ask you here in just a few moments. It's called a Page-Keeley Science Probe. So let's begin. We're going to go through Inspire Science. Inspire Science is our K-8 science program. It's actually our K-12 science program, but it's K-8 we're going through now. And if you're a K-5 teacher, every one of your students get 4 interactive write and student work texts. Now, what do I mean by interactive write and student work texts? I mean, students are literally writing in these. They're journaling in these. They're collecting their data in these work texts. Why? Because their labs are in these work texts. And they get replaced every year for every student as long as you have Inspire Science in your classroom. Think of them as half textbook and half journal, all in one. For middle school teachers, there are 4 for you as well. 4 units per student per grade level. Each one of these units has a corresponding online student edition. And teachers, you have an online teacher's edition as well. So this program can be used in a very traditional sense, where students have a student edition, you have a teacher's edition, and you go online minimally. Or you could use this program 100% digitally, where everybody is online every single day. I find that most classrooms like to use this program a little in between. I like to call that a hybrid program, where you're using some traditional elements in your classroom. Maybe you go in and sprinkle in some digital as well. It's really up to you how you want to implement Inspire Science. And know Inspire Science is available anywhere, anytime, on any device: PC, laptop, Chromebook, tablet, and even a smartphone. And what experiences are students going to find on these devices? Well, they come in all shapes and sizes. Since this is a phenomena-based program, every module and lesson will begin with a phenomena. Like, why are those goats climbing that tree? What are they doing up there? For what purpose are they up there? And how do they even get up there? I know I climb with my hands and my fingers. I don't think goats have fingers. How do they get up there? Good phenomena are designed to spark curiosity and student-generated questions. And that's what we want in Inspire Science, to get those conversations started. Every module and lesson begin with one. There'll be virtual labs, simulations, STEM career kit videos, and an interactive ebook experience that brings all of these experiences together. And you'll even see these little STEM career kits scattered throughout the program. They're a design feature. They're designed to have students be able to see themselves in their STEM future. So they will highlight non-traditional STEM careers. Like, we all know about doctors and maybe engineers, but what about computer programmers and ocean engineers and architects? Students may not be familiar with these professions, and that's what the STEM career kids are all about, getting them introduced to these professions. So we're about to walk through a module of Inspire Science. How is it laid out, and what experiences are students going to find all along the way? This is a big picture schematic of the module we're about to walk through. Every module begins with a module opener. It's a 2-page spread, and there'll be a phenomena video here. Then we go into a STEM module project launch. It's sort of a heads up to the STEM project that students are going to experience at the end. We give them a little introduction to it at the beginning. And then we go into a 5E lesson model. The only difference between 5E lesson models that you may be familiar with and our 5E lesson model is that we have an experience at the beginning. We call it a Page-Keeley probe, and we're going to do one together as a group. And then every lesson ends with an opportunity to contribute to that STEM project. Okay, so that's the big picture. Let's drill down. We're going to go through grade 4, unit 4. Since this is a K-8 audience, we're going to split it right down the middle, K through 4. Now, if you're a grade 6, 7th, and 8th grade teacher, everything that I share with you in this grade 4 walkthrough will apply to you. And you have some unique things for middle school as well. So don't think this is just a K-5 experience. This is a K-8 experience. And we're going to walk through a module called Information Processing and Transfer. This is all about how animals communicate and how humans communicate, perceive information. Is it possible animals and humans can communicate and perceive information in very similar ways? We start with that 2-page spread. Remember where we're at right here? Let me go back. This is where we're at right here, the module opener, a 2-page spread that looks like this. And it says, how does a lighthouse transmit a message across the distance? Think about how a lighthouse communicates. Does it use light? Does it use sound? How do the sailors perceive that information? And then it says, go online and see this video, clicks and echoes, to see this phenomenon in action. So remember, this module is all about how animals communicate, perceive information, and how humans communicate and perceive information. And do we communicate and perceive information in similar ways? I'm going to go to that phenomena video that is referenced there. And here it is. And this is a 3D phenomena, which means I can manipulate it with my cursor and look around. So let's take a look at this. So we've got a diver there, and he's looking down with the camera. What is he looking down at? And what's making that noise? Let's see if we can take a look down below. Oh, we've got dolphins down there. And it's a group of dolphins, and they're communicating with each other. So it makes me think of a few questions here. If they're communicating, does that mean they have a language? If they have a language, does that mean they have an alphabet? Of sorts anyway, maybe one we don't understand quite yet. Do all dolphins speak the same language? Does a dolphin in the Atlantic Ocean speak the same language as a dolphin in, let's say, the Pacific or Indian Ocean? How do they perceive their language? I know I listen using my ears, and my brain has learned to make sense of those signals and patterns over time. How do the dolphins perceive that information? These are all questions students are going to have. And good phenomena are designed to spark curiosity and student-generated questions. Every one of our modules will begin with a phenomenon like that. And that happens to be a 3D phenomenon. From there, we go into the 5E lesson model. And remember, ours begins with one additional step, Paige Keeley and her formative assessment probes. So Paige is a former president of NSTA. She's a wildly successful author, and she's known for coming up with these scenarios that are designed to get students thinking and curious and have them share their ideas. They're called Paige Keeley probes. Now, here's the one for the lesson that we're going to walk through. But before we go to the lesson, the lesson we're going to walk through, I like to use one for training purposes where I'm going to have you all participate in the chat. So get ready to share your thinking on the chat here in just a moment. So this is a probe I'd like for you to consider that I'm going to put on the screen right now. This is just for training purposes. Here's the scenario. The students in Mrs. Bartoli's class were studying how chickens develop from an egg. The students put a dozen freshly laid fertilized eggs, chicken eggs, in an incubator. They wondered what would happen to the weight of an egg as the chick developed inside. And this is what the students thought. So here's a scenario. You're going to weigh the egg right after it's laid. Okay? You're going to let it incubate. You're going to weigh it right before it pecks out of that egg right there, kind of like right before it starts to come out of that egg. You weigh it again right after it's laid. You weigh it again right before it comes out of that shell. Is there going to be a difference in the weight? Sarah thinks, I think the egg will weigh the most just after it's laid. Wei says, I think the egg will weigh the most right before it hatches. Hakeem says, I think the weight of the egg will stay the same after it's laid until before it hatches. Who do you agree with most and why? So here's what I'd like for you to do. Don't put your answer in the chat just yet. So we're going to say Sarah is A, Wei is answer B, and Hakeem is answer C. I should have put an A, B, or C in front of them. But just to realize, Sarah's going to be A, Wei's going to be B, and Hakeem is going to be C. So I'm going to have you share your thinking all at once. Okay? Who do you think is correct? Sarah, Wei, or Hakeem? And when I say everybody, and when I say go, everybody's going to put their answer in the chat. Okay? And I want you to share your thinking here afterwards. And I'm going to tell you when here in just a moment. So I'm going to look at the chat here. And so in a second here, well, we got some fast starters here that put her A, B, or C. Go ahead and put A, B, or C in now. Okay, A, B, or C. Who do you think the best answer is and why? If you see something on the screen, that's my chat window. I'm kind of looking at your responses here. I see some A, Randa put C, Hassan put C, Ratan put C, Nancy put C. Okay, interesting. Huh, okay, very good. Now, if I were with you today, I might have you share your responses by putting a finger underneath your chin. For instance, if you thought the best answer is Sarah, I'd have you put one finger underneath your chin. If you think the best answer is Wei, I'd have you put two fingers underneath your chin. If you thought the best answer was Hakeem, I'd have you put three fingers underneath your chin. And that's what I would do as a teacher. It's kind of a simple anonymous response strategy. I get an idea of what you're thinking. I'd say, hey, look at me the whole time. Don't look around. I don't want you to get influenced by your classmates. I want you to look at me the whole time. And I can survey the room and get an idea of what you might be thinking. Paige Keeley probes will tell you. Paige will tell you, hey, if they're choosing Sarah, this is probably what they're thinking and where that thinking is coming from. And if they're choosing Wei, this is probably what they're thinking is coming from. And the same with Hakeem. And then we'd have a discussion. I'd gather you around. I'd probably break you up in groups of 2 or 3 and have you share your thinking. Just for the sake of time, we're not going to do that today, but I'd have you have a discussion. Who do you think the best answer is why? And then we'd have a share out as a group. Now, the idea of the probes is you don't want to give them the best answer at the beginning of the lesson. Okay, we're at the beginning of the lesson. And if I gave students the best answer at the beginning, what would stop afterwards? Probably the thinking would stop, the curiosity would stop, the desire to know would stop. And we don't want those things to stop. Paige would say, let them grapple with this question, let them work on it, let them struggle with it a little bit. And it creates a desire to know. And so every lesson begins with the probe, and students have an opportunity to share their voice. Every lesson in Inspire Science gives students an opportunity to share their voice right at the beginning of the lesson. How do you know you're at a Paige Keeley probe? Well, if you flip through the student edition and you get to a purple edge page, that marks the beginning of the lesson, and that will be a Paige Keeley probe. For the lesson that we're walking through, it's called Animalize. 2 friends were talking about Animalize, and notice that animals that are active at night have very large eyes, and this is what they said. Laura said animals like owls have large eyes to help them see in the dark. They do not need light to see. But Jaden said animals like owls have large eyes to help them see in the dark, but they still need some light to see. Who do you agree with most and why? Again, the answer is not the most important part of the probe. It's always the discussion. It's always the sharing of ideas. It's students uncovering misconceptions. All those things happen at the beginning of each and every lesson. And remember, refrain from getting them the best answer at the beginning. Let them figure it out over time. From there, we go into the first E, engage. And there will always be a phenomena and driving question as well. How do eyes help animals see? We're in lesson 2 of this module, and it says go online to see the phenomena called the eyes. So here's that phenomena video. And it's a cat. And what's that cat looking at? And why are his eyes changing shape? Is something getting closer to the cat or farther away? Is there more or less light coming into the room? Is it possible the cat's communicating with another cat using its eyes? What's going on there? Again, good phenomena are designed to spark curiosity, and every module and lesson will begin with a phenomena. So we've started with the Paige Keeley probe. We've had that phenomena at the beginning, the cat, with the driving question. It's time to go into explore and explain. And explore will start with a lab or an investigation. And notice the yellow edging on the page. If you're flipping through the student edition and you see some yellow edge pages, that means you're at a lab or an investigation. So why did we color code the beginning of the lesson purple and labs and investigations yellow? Well, to make things easy to find for students and teachers. We find that students eventually get trained really quickly. So I taught K-5 and 6A classrooms. And in my classroom, so many times my students would say, Mr. Marshall, where am I supposed to be? Where are we at? Where are we at? And with Inspire Science, you could say, we're at the beginning of the lesson, Jose. What color is the beginning of the lesson? Oh, purple. Okay, I'm here. And before you know it, students know where they're at based on that color coding. Every lesson begins with a purple edge page. It's the probe. And every lab and investigation are yellow. And so these will be opportunities for exploration. Some of them are labs, but not all of them are labs. So some of them might be a simulation. It might be a data analysis opportunity. It might be a research project where they go online to the internet, maybe get information and come back and report on it. or it might even be an engineering challenge. There's at least 2 in every single lesson of Inspire Science. These are supported with collaboration kits and even videos where students can see the lab being executed. And there are 2 types of video in K-5. One is for the teacher. So imagine if you're a literacy specialist, and I know many of you probably are, maybe your strength is math and science may not be your strongest content area. Wouldn't it be nice to have a video that showed you the science content background going into the lab and then walk through the lab step by step, how to group students, what it should look like on the table, what every single step of the procedure is going to look like. You can actually see the lab being done on video. It even goes through questions students are likely to have along the way and how to answer those questions. That's what the Inquiry Teacher Preview does. Inspire Science has an Inquiry Teacher Preview for you, the teacher. There is another video called the Inquiry Rewind, and that is for the students. Think about it as a tool for students that miss lab day. I know a lot of our Inspire Science users use it and walk through the lab together. Maybe if you are short on time or you just think it might work better if we all watch this as a group as opposed to doing it, maybe you use it and do a demonstration on a table. It's really up to you. It gives you a great deal of flexibility, that Inquiry Rewind video does, to use it in many different ways. These support pieces are a big Inspire Science difference. And for those labs that are too dangerous or too time-consuming, or maybe even too expensive or just logistically impossible to do in class, we do those virtually. On the bottom left, you see iodine being heated up. You may not be able to do that in your classroom. Looks like it's getting more, the molecules are getting more agitated as the temperature goes up. It's taking up more volume in a confined space. These are things that many classrooms just can't do, but you can do in a virtual situation. There's even a partnership with PhET, and that's true K through 8. And PhET simulations look like this. Here's one on a skateboarder, and we're going to learn about kinetic and potential energy through the skateboard park. And conservation of energies, by the way. So I'm going to put the skater on the skate ramp. The skater goes up and down. We see his kinetic and potential energy going up and down. And as a student, if I'm exploring this, I could pause at the top and I can see, okay, he's all potential energy here. I can play it again. And at the bottom, looks like he's all kinetic energy. But something unnatural is taking place here. I'm looking at this, something's not quite right. Should that skater be slowing down at some point? And in the natural world, the skater would slow down. He wouldn't go to the top of the ramp every single time and have the same potential and kinetic energy. Something would prevent that, and that is friction. And we don't have any friction in the system. So students can manipulate this, add some friction to the system. Now the skater is slowing down. We see the kinetic and potential energy values going down, but notice what's going up, the thermal energy. So that energy is just being transferred to another form, and we'll end up with the same amount of energy at the end. That's the example of a PhET simulation. They're integrated into Inspire Science. Some of you may be using them already, but now they're on the McGraw Hill platform. When we get to explain, there's going to be explanations. That's where the narrative takes place. And all along the way, there's opportunities for students to go online and do additional explorations to see how different animals see the world. In this particular lesson, a cat versus, let's say, a rat or a snake. How do they see the world in daytime versus nighttime from different orientations and angles? As a primary school student, if I was at kindergarten or first grade or second grade and I were integrating a simulation to my classroom, maybe I have this on my smartboard or projected and we all gather around and we have this exploration together. You could do this as a whole group. There's nothing that prevents you from doing that. If I was a fourth or fifth grade teacher, and I know my students have access to their own devices at school or at home, maybe I assign this to have students do outside of class and then come into class with some really cool ideas and explanations about what's going on. There are many different ways to do this. It's really up to you, and it gives you a lot of flexibility. We get to elaborate. We're going to talk about vocations that apply the science that we've been learning. And this lesson happens to be a veterinarian. What does a veterinarian do? And to share her experiences about veterinary medicine or her passion is Ruby. She's our STEM career kid.
Do you know what this is? Yes, it's an X-ray. In fact, it's an X-ray of an iguana. I want to be a veterinarian when I grow up. Then I will use technology like this to care for sick and injured animals. I want to work in a zoo. That way I can help all kinds of animals, even my favorite animal, penguins.
So Ruby's an example of one of our STEM career kids. Remember, you'll find them throughout the program. They're in the print resources and in video format as well. Every lesson builds upon itself. And then at the end of all lessons, there's a STEM project or a STEM challenge. Now, it could be a science challenge or an engineering challenge. So what's the difference? A science challenge is typically kind of a web quest. Many of them are research projects where students are going to report back or have some sort of product that they develop at the end of this experience. Engineering challenges are actually asking students to design something, create something, design a solution to a real-world problem. So each will integrate some of the concepts found in the entire module, but they're slightly different, science challenge or engineering challenge. How do I know which is which? Well, at the top of them, you'll see science challenge or engineering challenge. And in the engineering challenge, we're going to ask them to use the engineering design process to come up with that creative solution. We get to evaluate, it's time to be assessed. We're going to ask students to summarize what they've learned. There's a three-dimensional thinking prompt. There's even an extended activity on the next page for students that need to be challenged. And then it's time to revisit the probe. You'll see a purple arrow that's pointing back at the end of the lesson, saying, hey, why don't you revisit that probe? See if our thinking has changed again. So we're going to revisit that animalized probe. And at the beginning of the lesson, the class was pretty evenly divided. They shared their thinking with the green sticky notes at the beginning of the class. Now, at the end of the lesson, we've had a few experiences. Students have done some reading, maybe a research project, maybe a lab or two. And of course, their thinking is going to change. All of our thinking changes as we get additional evidence. And they're going to share their thinking in orange at the end of the lesson. The sticky note strategy is one of many strategies that can be used in tandem with the probes to give students a vehicle to share their ideas and revisit them. That's a big Inspire Science difference. Students sharing their ideas and constantly revisiting them. But we need a test generator, don't we? And it sure would be nice to have pre-made tests. Every lesson in Inspire Science has a pre-made test. It's ready to go. If you like it, just print it out and make copies. If you want to create your own, you can do that as well. And there's a test generator. You can even have it create technology-enhanced questions like the one you see on the screen, where students are manipulating things on the screen, like this drag and drop for their answers. The benefit of having students take the test online is that it gets scored for you automatically. And you could generate reports to see how students are doing on standards or different topics. And it even supports a lot of different types of test questions. Teachers have always told us, don't just give us true, false, multiple choice, essay. Give us some cool questions, some questions that are like the testing our students are doing in our district. Things like bucketing or sequencing, or even image labeling. Can I import an image of a cell and have students label my image of the cell? And the answer is yes. That's an image labeling technology enhanced question. And so all these types of questions are available. You could even have students share their thinking via a voice recording. I might show you how to create one of those here before the end of the hour. All of these different types of assessments are a big Inspire Science difference. Reaching all learners. If you see a little orange square and it says AL, that means approaching level. Now, it'd be easy if you only saw that little square and it says AL to think it meant above level. It does not. Remember, it always means approaching level. OL is on level, and BL means beyond level. It means it might be an activity or a suggestion for students that are gifted and talented, or maybe a little bit above grade level in their understanding. So approaching level, on level, and beyond level. Again, this is not above level, and this is not below level. BL means beyond level, okay? There's support for our English language learners, whether they're at the emerging, expanding, or bridging level of English language acquisition. You'll see purple boxes throughout for English language support. And if you're an experienced teacher, you know this, but if you're a new teacher, let me share with you a tip. These English language learner boxes, they're great for all students. You'll find strategies in there that you'll say, man, I think I'm going to use this for everyone in my class. I learned that really fast teaching in Fort Worth, Texas, where I had a big bilingual population. These ELO strategies work for all students. So don't forget those purple boxes. And literacy integration, we've got it covered. I know many of you are using Wonders. There's a lot of strategies in Wonders that are used in Inspire Science, like having collaborative conversations. We do that with the probe. Every single lesson has collaborative conversations. Accessing complex text, close readings, all part of Inspire Science. And there's also additional literacy resources. So let's take a look at a few. Paired read, our science read alouds are for our primary grade levels. They're only in grades kindergarten and grade 1. And it creates an experience online, a big book experience. I happen to have one up and running. And so in many primary classrooms, a lot of teachers have a big book in front of them and they have students gathered around to read it together. Well, that's what this is, except now you project it. There's an audio button here. We're in the fiction part of the read aloud. But if you want to go to nonfiction, there's always a nonfiction section where students are going to learn, in this case, about light and sound and how they are both forms of energy. So read alouds come in digital form, like you see here, and they're also in kind of a magazine style format for small groups and for students to be able to check them out. There are leveled readers. For students approaching level, that's the orange spine. Blue is on level, and green is beyond level, just like the color coding in the text. Same, and purple is ELL. Same titles, okay, along the way. Students that are at a lower level aren't reading a different story, which can make them feel very different and not like the rest of their classmates. Same titles, same narrative, just written at a grade level that's most appropriate to them. It will mirror what you see in the Wonders readers. In many ways, there'll be an essential question, a paired read opportunity. We're going to ask students to use a graphic organizer to find textual evidence along the way. We know that students that use graphic organizers, they consistently outperform students that do not. And in the end, on the inside back cover of the reader, there's a little school-to-home activity or a little short activity that can be done in class to reinforce those science and engineering practices. Investigator articles are high-interest magazine-style articles. Now, these are available. By the way, the readers are K through 5, okay? And the investigator articles are 2 through 5. And these are what I like to call high-interest magazine-style articles connecting the science you're teaching to cool science and engineering breakthroughs. Each one of these magazines will have 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 11 to 17 articles within them. And at the end of each one of these articles, there'll be a task of some kind, an activity. Maybe students are going online, do a little research, and then write a paragraph about what they've learned, or create a model of some kind. There'll be a task at the end of every one of these magazines' short articles. So we've been exclusively looking at grade 4. Are there some specific things to middle school? Well, everything that I shared with you just now in that walkthrough applies to our middle school teachers. But there's a couple. So what do I mean? Phenomena-based learning. Every module lesson begins with one. And here's one. How does this microscopic amoeba perform all the functions that you do to stay alive? So here we have an amoeba. It's a module opener phenomena. Is it moving? Yeah, is it moving? It is moving. Do we move? Yes, we do. Looks like it's consuming something. Did you see that? It brought something in and consumed it. Do we consume things throughout the day? Yes, we do. So we move and consume things. The amoeba moves and consumes things. It even looks like it's releasing things along the way. This amoeba does a lot of the things that we do to stay alive, and that's what this module happens to be about. So every module lesson will begin with a phenomenon. Every module will give you opportunities for virtual labs. Here's an example of one for middle school. There are 74 virtual labs in the middle school program. PhET simulations are a bigger part of middle school as well, and there are 40 PhET simulations integrated throughout. We took a look at that skateboard park a little bit ago. So 74 virtual labs, 40 PhET simulations. There's a reading essentials. It's not in grades K through 5, but it is in middle school. It's a lower level read of the concepts that are in your book. So if you have students that are reading below grade level, consider the reading essentials. It's a little bit of a cleaner page. It offers more narrative. You can use it for all students if you'd like, but know that it's written at a slightly below grade level. It even has little features like study coach, mark the text, ask students to take notes. So take a look at the reading essentials, and I'm going to show you where it's at. And the last feature that middle school has that K5 doesn't have is called LearnSmart. LearnSmart is an adaptive, personalized learning tool. It asks students to read, and then it's going to ask them questions along the way. As a teacher, you can see students' most challenging objectives and even generate reports to see how students are doing on concepts. LearnSmart efficacy is, you can see on the left through that infographic feature. So let's take a look online and what the online experience looks like, where everything that I just shared with you is found. How am I going to find my resources? So I'm going to close a few windows out here. We're done with that skate park. And I'm going to go to the McGraw Hill platform. Now I'm going to go back one window. And I'm going to go to a screen that looks like this. So I've got different grade levels here. I have grade 4, grade 7, grade 1. I even have some high school titles here because I'm going to do a high school session a little bit later. And if you're, let's say, a grade 4 teacher, you might have, and you teach 5 periods, you'll see 5 of these. It might say inspires, you could title it whatever you want, like period 1, period 2, period 3, period 4, but I just have 1. I'm going to enter that class. When I enter the class, I see a screen that looks like this. It's called the dashboard screen. Now, how do I know I'm in the dashboard screen? Well, it says dashboard right here on the page. That's one clue. Dashboard over here on the left is it's sort of shaded, and there's a little dark spot over here to the left of where it says dashboard, and that tells you where you're at. Dashboard is one of the many navigational locations I have to go to. You can see them all over here on the left. Now, what's on the dashboard screen? Let's take a look around. Down here, I have a program guide. And if you're a new user to the program, I highly encourage you to download it, take a good look at it. It's a full color brochure, and it'll go through a lot of the things I went through over the last half an hour. How the program is organized. What does a module look like? If I have it up and running right now. So if I scroll through here just a little bit, things like this page that we took a look at a little bit ago, the big picture schematic of how a module flows from beginning to end. That's in this program overview. It'll go through what do teachers get and what students get. Remember, every student gets 4 interactive write-in student work texts, 4 units per student. Each one of these has a corresponding teacher's edition. It'll go through the ancillary resources. We just talked about them, the leveled readers, the investigator articles, and the read-alouds. It'll go through what digital resources are available to you. So this is a great, if you're a new user to the program, this is a great resource to begin looking at and just give you a refresher every now and then as to what you have available in the program. And of course, this is a phenomena-based program. And here we have those goats on top of that tree. So a lot of resources down here. There's a impact news. It's a current event part of our website. Take a look at it. We'll take a look at it today if we have time. Well, let's talk about navigating the site. We're here on the dashboard screen. Now, the first location you're going to want to go to is to find the resources that will support the lesson that you're teaching, let's say tomorrow, or the lesson that you're planning for. So how do I go to any specific lesson? You start with the table of contents, okay? And this is a little bit of a different feature. If you used this last year, it looks a little bit different to you. If you used it last year, it'll still be very familiar. It'll take you not long at all to see the changes that we've made. But if you're a new teacher, let me walk you through this platform. You start with the table of contents. Open it up, and you'll see a big picture view of all the modules in the program, okay? Now, there are a few locations before the modules, like program resources and program overview. Let me start with program overview. If I go to that location, I'm going to see that program guide again. We just took a look at that. It was also on my dashboard screen. Here's another resource. It's called Program Philosophy. And here's a quick start course. If you're a new program, new to the program, I should say, you might want to take a look at it. It'll walk you through the program and give you a better feel for how it's organized, kind of like I've done in this video, but it doesn't hurt to see it another time. And here are some Inspiring Sparks videos. These are kind of inspirational videos at every grade level to share what experiences are students going to find in Inspire Science. So there's not a lot in program overview, but a couple of resources I encourage you to take a look at. Now, this program resources section, there's more here. And it's important to know that location. It sometimes get overlooked because this has overarching course resources. So let's take a look at these digital file folders. And by the way, that's what I like to call these horizontal lines. When you hear me use the term digital file folders, this is what I'm talking about, like course planning resources. That's a digital file folder. Three-dimensional assessment guide. That's a digital file folder. Think of this table of contents location as a digital filing cabinet. And when you get to a location, you're going to find digital file folders, just like you might find in a physical filing cabinet. I had one in my classroom in that physical filing cabinet. It was right behind my desk. And I would reach back, I would open up a drawer, and in that drawer were file folders. And in those file folders were activities that I had collected or made copies of or had received from colleagues. And I had all of my resources organized for my entire year. That's exactly what we're looking at now, digital file folders in a digital filing cabinet. So here's course planning resources. Here's my teacher's edition, okay? Unit 1, Unit 2, Unit 3, Unit 4. Here are some pacing guides. Here's a materials list, okay? All the resources needed for this particular, to do all the experiences in here. If you're sourcing as a campus, there's your materials list. If I scroll down here, here's Wonders Integration Planner. So if you are a Wonders user and you want to maybe sprinkle in a little science into your Wonders block or a little Wonders into your science block, it will share with you what units will allow you to make thematic connections between the two programs. This is a great resource. It gives you great flexibility. So it will mirror the Wonders, it will start with a Wonders program because it has to be taught in order. And so here we have Unit 1 in Wonders, Clever Ideas. And here are the Inspire Science unit modules that might be good to make thematic connections between the two programs. Take a look at it. It's called a Wonders Integration Planner for 2017 Wonders, and we even have one for 2020 Wonders. Where is it found? It's found in my course resources folder. So there's some really good stuff here that will be of use to you. In my learning resources folder, here are my student editions. If I continue to scroll down here, foldables activities. These are three-dimensional graphic organizer videos. It will share with students how to make a graphic organizer that might help them in individual lessons. This is called a half book foldable, and it'll give students step-by-step instructions on how to make this half book three-dimensional graphic organizers. A lot of our teachers assign these ahead of time. Give them the video ahead of time, have students come in with the foldable created, okay? And here are some of our foldables, our STEM Career Kids videos. Kayla, she wants to be a landscape architect. And here's a video of Kayla.
Hi, I'm Kayla, and every spring I help my grandma plan our flower garden, just like a landscape architect. Landscape architects make plans and decide what plants go in a garden for a museum or park. They might also help businesses plan what the landscape around their building will look like too. To make the gardens look nice, a landscape architect needs to know a lot about plants.
So those STEM Career Kids are found here, okay? So I'm going to exit program resources, and I'm going to go to the module and lesson that we walked through on my PowerPoint. So it was information processing and transfer, if you remember. How do animals and humans communicate and perceive information? I'm going to go into the lesson we walked through. So I click on that arrow, and here are the lessons. The lesson we walked through is the role of Animalize. I'm going to click on that lesson. So again, I started with a table of contents. Let me go back a little bit. I chose the module that I wanted to go into. I clicked on the arrow. It shared with me the lessons available. And I chose the lesson I want to go into, Module 2, the role of Animalize. Now, when I get to that lesson, notice it organizes my resources in digital file folders as well. I have lesson planning resources. I have a folder for the probe, a folder for all of my E's, engage all the way to evaluate, each as a digital file folder. Okay? So let's take a look at what resources are found in a lesson. And every lesson will have these file folders. If I go to my lesson planning resources, I have my lesson at a glance. Now, what is this resource? Well, it's a big picture view and gives you a pacing of the lesson. So if you teach science 45 minutes a day, we've got a pacing track for you. How long should the probe and engage take? And then explore, okay? And what activities are found along the way? This is if you teach 45 minutes a day. But many of you don't teach 45 minutes a day, especially at K through 5. Some of you might teach 30 minutes a day, or maybe even 30 minutes 3 days a week. For you, we have a Flex Track A and a Flex Track B. So that's found within our Lesson at a Glance in my Lesson Planning Resources folder. Here's my teacher lab video. Remember that lab available for me or that video for me as a teacher to feel comfortable going into this lab? I'm going to find it here in my Lesson Planning Resources. It's opening up here. This lab is How Light Travels. And this video, when it opens, will give me the comfort I need to go into this lab to be successful. It's called an Inquiry Teacher Preview video. If I continue to scroll down, I have additional videos on misconceptions my students might have. Now, I'm going to close that folder out. Okay. My probe folder is right here. It's color-coded just like it is within the lesson. I open that folder and I look around. What do I have here? Well, I have a print version of that probe. So what if I want to use the probe kind of like a worksheet activity? Can I do that? Yeah, I could print this out and make copies. Every student has one in front of them. This is in their student book, so you don't have to make copies if you don't want to. But I find a lot of teachers sometimes like to have a loose leaf version of it, just as something students can turn in, so they don't have to turn in their whole student edition to get graded, if you want to grade this, okay? And so here's a printable version of it. But what if I wanted students to complete this digitally? Do I have a digital version as well? Yeah, right above it. Here's a digital version. If I look at this one, what does the digital version look like? Well, it looks just like the print version, except it's optimized for a device. Two friends were talking about animal eyes. This is what they noticed that they noticed that animals that are active at night have very large eyes, and this is what they said. Do I agree with Laura, or do I agree with Jaden? And then why do I agree with Laura or Jaden? There's an opportunity for me to explain my thinking along the way. So if I wanted to assign this digitally to my students, can I do that? And the answer is yes. Whenever you see a resource in your digital filing cabinet that's meant or to be assigned or can be assigned, you're going to see an assign button next to that resource. See, here's an assign button. And if I wanted to assign it, I click assign. Do I want to change the name of this assignment? No, I'll keep it as the same name. What do I want the due date to be? I could change the due date if I want to, what time I want it to be due. I'll keep it as tomorrow. That's fine for me. How many points do I want it to be worth? Whatever grading system you want to use, you can use. 5 points, 100 points, it's really up to you. Any instructions I want to give my students? Sure. Complete and return to me. Be ready to talk about this probe in the morning. Okay, so very easy. Name, due date, how many points I want it to be worth, instructions, and then I'm ready to assign it. Okay, I could even choose what students get it. So if right now it has all of my students getting it, but I could delete certain students if I wanted to, okay, or include other students. But it will always default to all students. And I click assign. And now that's been sent to my students as a digital assignment, something for them to complete on their side. Once I've assigned it to them, it shows in a couple locations over here on the left. It will show up in my assignments section. Here's a location on the left called assignments. And here's that assignment that I just sent, that Science Probe Animal Eyes. Nobody has submitted it yet. It will share with you that it's still open, and the start date and the due date for this assignment. So assignments will keep track of all the assignments that you've created digitally for your students. It will also show up in my calendar right here as a teacher. Okay. It will also show up in my dashboard screen. If I scroll down here, it shows up my dashboard screen because the dashboard has a small calendar, a mini calendar, if you will. Okay. So I'm back on the dashboard screen. How do I get back to my lesson resources? Well, it says we're in lesson 2 Animal Eyes. And if I want to go back to that file folder, it remembers where I was at last. And so all I have to do is go to course. I don't have to go to my table of contents. I just go to course. I click on that button and it'll take me directly back to that digital filing cabinet. We took a look at this probe folder. Now, wouldn't it be nice to have a conversation strategy activity for this probe? Does McGraw Hill's Inspire Science provide those? Yes, they do. So if I go up one back to this lesson planning resources folder, there's a strategy for every probe that you might use. This is called argumentation lines, or 2 or 3 before me. What do these look like? Let's take a look at it. It is Paige yourself sharing with you a strategy that you might use to get a good conversation going in your students. Now, you could just pair them up in groups of 2 or 3, but that's very simple. Wouldn't it be fun to do something a little bit more interesting? Argumentation lines is a strategy that you can use that's been carefully chosen for this particular probe. Let's just take a quick peek at it.
Formative assessment probes provide an opportunity for students to engage in the scientific practice of argumentation. One of the strategies you might use to provide students with the opportunity to engage in argument is called argumentation lines. This strategy works best with probes that have 2 answer choices. After students commit to their answer choice and construct their explanations, have them stand up and form 2 lines. 1 line for answer choice A and 1 line for answer choice B, and then the students face each other in these lines and the argumentation session begins.
So she'll go through how to implement that argumentation line strategy successful. There are about 20 different conversation strategy videos that support all of these probes, and you'll find that conversation strategy video right here in this lesson planning resource folder. So you have a probe, and right above it you have a conversation strategy video. You have engage, explore, and explain. And in explain, all of our lessons are broken down into nice little chunks, okay? Nice little segments that make little homework assignments. So if I want to assign just a little segment of a lesson, I can. Not too much reading, just enough. And each one of our readings is Google Translate compatible. So at any time I can translate this to one of 100 languages, over 100 languages. So if I want to translate this to Arabic, I can translate this to Arabic. If I want to translate this to, let's say French, I could translate this to French. I notice it changes nothing else on the screen. It looks perfect. Everything looks perfect, except it's translated to this language. And I can go back to the original. All of our narratives are Google Translate compatible. So if I wanted to assign any one of these little segments, I could do that. Okay, this is just a little segment of the lesson. I'd click assign just like we did before. I'd have some questions I needed to answer, like what did I want to title the assignment? When do I want to do? How many points I want it to be worth? So every resource in the program can be assigned. If you see an assign button, it's meant to be assigned, or can be assigned, I should say. You don't have to, but it can be. If you don't see an assign button here, what does that mean? It typically means it's a teacher resource that's not meant to be assigned. Let me give you an example. If I go to teacher planning resources, I don't see an assign button here with a lesson at a glance. That's for me as a teacher. It's not meant to be assigned to my students. Same with the inquiry teacher preview video. No assign button. But if you do see an assign button, it's something that can be assigned if you choose to. If I go to a folder down here to evaluate, I mentioned that every lesson has a pre-made quiz. So here's a pre-made quiz. I could print it out, make copies if I want to. It's ready to go. There's a print button right here. I could print it out, make copies. I have a quiz already done for this particular lesson. If I would prefer my students complete this lesson, this quiz digitally, there's a digital version as well, and I could assign that to my students, okay? I'm going to go and assign this really fast. I'm going to keep all the default settings, and I'm going to click assign. And now that's been sent to my students as well. Where does it show up on my left? It shows up in my assignment section. And now my students have 2 assignments waiting for them. So if I go to my course view here, I have a digital filing cabinet. Remember, it starts with table of contents. Go to the module and then the lesson you want support for. Click on the arrow. It will take you to that lesson. And once you're there, it'll organize your resources into digital file folders. At the end of these digital file folders is a lesson library. What do you find there? You'll find things like the videos in one place, sometimes the simulations in one place. If you just want to go to a simulation, you don't want to go into the file folders to find them, just go to your lesson library. It will exist there. And at the end of the digital filing cabinet, teacher added resources. So if you want to add a resource or upload a resource that McGraw Hill knows nothing about, something that you've used over time, you could do that as well. Maybe it's a Word document here. Okay, I could add that content to my experience. I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call this Eyes Lab. I add that content, and now that Eyes Lab will be in the McGraw Hill platform. There it was. There it is. It was on my desktop just a few seconds ago. And now it's in my teacher added resources section. So this digital filing cabinet can be a combination of everything McGraw Hill has created to teach this lesson. But if you're a veteran teacher, you've probably got a lot of stuff in your own filing cabinet on your laptop. You could bring it into the McGraw Hill filing cabinet. And once here, like that Eyes Lab, I could assign it like any other resource. And by the way, this could have been a web link. It could be a video. I could assign it like any other McGraw Hill resource. Now, last thing I'm going to share with you, because we're towards the end of our time, is what are my students going to see? Well, let's take a look at the student experience really fast. I'm going to go into what are my students in my class. His name is Jim. He's going to enter his 4th grade class. Jim's 4th grade class looks like this. Remember those 2 assignments I sent to Jim? Here's one of them, that probe. And here's that quiz Jim, I sent to Jim. So when Jim starts his probe, he can click on that probe. He will see that experience in a format that's designed for his device. I wonder who he would agree with most and why. Let's let's say Jaden. Well, Jim, looks like Jim has answered this one already, but let me answer it again for him. I think Jaden is correct because notice it's going to auto save for me. I don't have to hit a save button. And once I'm ready to submit it, I just click submit. And now that has been sent to my teacher for a score. Notice that it's gone now. It's no longer in my to-do list. It's over in my past work section. That probe is now in past work. I go back to home and I only see those things that I need to do. Grades, middle school grades, your experience looks a little bit different. I'll share with quite a bit different actually. It looks more like a teacher experience. This experience was designed for the K-5 student. To take a look at what a quiz looks like, let's take a look at this one real fast. I'll enter this quiz. And if you use learning management systems like Canvas or Schoology, when they get to the quiz, this is what it will look like for them. And they have questions being asked of them. Okay, I click next. I can also click this arrow to go to next. Here's a drag and drop question where students are going to have questions that they have to drag into the appropriate area. Okay, so lots of different question variety in our assessments. And when students are ready to complete this test or submit it, they just click done and review and submit. Okay, so now that's been sent to my teacher as well. If I go back to my home screen, there's nothing in my to-do list. Everything is in past work. Now, we took a look at a K-4 student. What if I'm a middle school student? Does that experience look different for me? Yeah, it looks different for you. Let me go into a middle school student's class. Let me go into Debbie's. I think Debbie has a middle school class. Let me go back just a step here. Make sure I have students in my middle school class. Grade 7. Let's see who's in my roster here. It would help if I had a student in there. Let me bring in Jim into my roster. Jim is the student I want to go into. I'm going to add that student to my roster. And I'm going to click Save. Now Jim is a student in my class. Now I can go to Jim's middle school experience. I'm going to go in as Jim. I'm going to log out here. And let me enter the class as Jim. Middle school students will have an experience that looks like this. Looks a lot like a teacher experience, doesn't it? Looks a little bit more sophisticated than that K-5 student experience we just looked at, where we had the probe and the quiz. Here, Jim has a dashboard. Looks a lot like the teacher dashboard. Here's a reading essentials for Jim. It's right here on his home screen. Remember, it's a lower level read of the textbook. Here's Jim's reading essentials right here. Jim has a table of contents as well, where Jim can go into a module and then lessons in that module. And Jim has digital file folders with all the resources that are meant for Jim, the student. Okay. He has these reading experiences right here. It's breaking down his lesson into chunks. Here's a close reading activity, just like we have in Wonders. He can open that up. And remember, we could always translate this using Google Translate as well. And so all of his experiences are in this student experience, organized by course and through the table of contents. Jim will see his assignments right here in this assignment section. But Jim doesn't have any assignments right now. So we are at 6 a.m. We're at the end of our time. And by the way, I appreciate your time and your participation in this back to school training. It's a lot, I know, if you're a new teacher, but it's pretty simple. You enter a screen that's called your dashboard screen. Start with your table of contents. Choose a module. And then if you want to go all the way to the lesson, click the arrow and click on the lesson you want support for. When you get there, all of your resources will be organized into digital file folders, and you can even add your own at the end. Assign any resources you want students to complete digitally, and assignment section will keep track of them right here for you. Okay. I'm at the end of my time, Suresh, and I'm open to answer any questions anyone might have about what they've seen.
Thank you, Jason. Thanks a lot. And I see one question have come up in the Q&A. It says, can teacher edit an assignment?
Yes and no. Depends on the assignment. So if I go to a module in a lesson, let's say, the dynamic earth, and let's go to moving contents. And I'll go to my digital file folders here. Okay. So I'm in middle school. Most of these resources have a lot of copyright issues with authors. So the probe was written by one of our authors. It cannot be edited. It's meant to be used as is. What can be edited are the assessments. Okay. So if I scroll down here and I go to evaluate, I have a pre-made quiz available, okay, that I could assign. Here it is right here. But what if I wanted to create my own quiz? One thing we haven't gone to is assessments. And this will allow me to create a quiz from scratch. I could click new assessment. I could call this Monday Pop Quiz. Middle East, I create assignment. And now I've got a quiz that I can create from scratch. And I could choose questions from our existing banks or create my own test bank. If I want to create from existing banks, I go to my assessment banks, choose the bank that I want to find a test from. I can even choose the test that I want to dig into. And now I can pull in the questions that I want to be a part of this test. So for instance, if I like this question, I can add it. If I don't like this question, I can go to the next one. And I can pull in questions at my discretion to find a pop quiz custom. I can create a customized pop quiz, save it. That will show up in my pop quiz data bank. So the short answer to your question is it depends on the resources. Assessments can be edited. If there are Word documents, like for instance, labs, those can be edited. But some experiences cannot because of the copyright issues, like the ebook can't be edited. The segments of the ebook can't be edited, those sort of things.
Thank you, Jason, for the clarification. And we actually have put up an Inspire Science Padlet. So lots of resources on the Padlet that I've just dropped a link to. You can check out the Padlet, and it's got lots of things that might be helpful for you, especially a lot of teachers have commented. Thank you, Jason. It was an amazing webinar, especially for teachers who are attending who are doing this first time. So thank you so much. And I've dropped the link to the Padlet as well. We are running a couple of sessions for back to school. So we do have another one actually for Inspire Science 9 to 12, if that is someone that you're looking to register for. I'm going to drop the link in the chat box in case you have missed out on that. And I think that's going to be in another, less than 2 hours now. If you want to join us back again, it's for 9 to 12, and I'm just finding the link, and there you go. That's the link for the session that you can click and register for the back to school webinars if we have any. I'm going to have if you're free to leave by now, the session is over. I am going to wait and check because I think there is a question that has come up. So I'll quickly cover that with Jason, if that's okay, Jason.
Absolutely.
Okay, so it's by Nancy. She's saying, are there special science activities for students with learning difficulties? Are there special science activities for students with learning difficulties?
Well, I would say activity. Well, yes and no. Okay, so got a couple solutions. Let me share what some of them are. If I go to my program resources here, let me get my Zoom window out of the way here, and I go to professional learning resources here. Let me scroll down. Actually, it's course planning resources. Let me scroll down here. I'm going to find a series of resources here designed to support a lot of students in my classroom, including students with disabilities. And so these resources here will give strategies, suggestions, best practices for different populations in our classroom: students with disability, gifted and talented, women, youth, migrant students. All of those are found in my course planning resources. When we get to a lesson itself, now, I don't know if the question came from K-5 or middle school, but in middle school, we have the reading essentials. That's the lower level read of the textbook. In K through 5, we have leveled readers, and there are leveled readers for students approaching level and for English language learners, which I think you'll find to be helpful for students that may be operating a little bit below grade level. There are tools in the program, modeling tools, students drawing their thinking as opposed to writing their thinking. But are there specific resources designed for students with maybe disabilities? And not necessarily in Inspire Science.
Thank you, Jason. Everyone is saying thank you, thank you, thank you. So thank you, Jason, really, for your time. And I want to be respectful of your time as well, Jason, and our participants here, because some of you might be joining back in for the 9 to 12 session. So I'm sorry if we couldn't take up your question, but until next time, we'll see you again. And I've dropped the link to the Padlet as well, and the registration for the webinar in case you need that. So once again, this is the link to the registration if you need to register for any of our sessions. And I think someone is asking me for the Padlet link again. So let me just quickly drop that in for you. These resources for the Padlet that we've put together for Inspire Science. Have a great rest of your day. And until next time, thank you, Jason. See you in some time.
Thank you all. Take care, everyone.
Bye.